welcome to the GTP podcast. I'm so excited to share with my guest today, Rafael, from the man behind MangaAlerts Twitter, as well as the man behind a very popular podcast as well. Rafael, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, dude. I've been a big fan of your guys's interviews before I did the whole thing. I watched all the interviews, I looked at your videos, subbed, followed everything. So I really did my research before coming in here to make sure, everything's all good to go and get to see, it's kind of weird see being like a viewer and watcher, like, oh, that's a really good piece of content. To now I'm on the hot seat, like, wow, okay, now it's my turn to see how this conversation is going to go.
Oh, well, I greatly appreciate you doing your own work. And it's the honor's all me. All mine. I'm so love your Twitter. I'll let you know every morning when I wake up when I'm like I want to find out my manga news. I'm going to your Twitter account first,
Oh,
before
wow.
Anime News Network or anything else. And you've broken, and we'll talk about this later, but you've broken
Yeah.
some hot stories, which is just very neat as
Oh,
well.
yeah. No, there's a lot of stories about that one. 100%.
Yeah, so
100%. Yep.
let's go and first start. I think one thing I personally like to do is everyone to know just a little bit personal about the man behind it is,
Yeah.
you're not just a person who's constantly, on Twitter only, but you do have a personal life outside. You are a
Yeah.
human being behind, not just a robot. Would you mind just describing for our listeners, what was your perfect Saturday growing up as a child?
Yeah, no, for sure. So when I was younger, my perfect Saturday would often be waking up early to catch the early Saturday morning cartoons on Cartoon Network because I'm a huge fan of Gumball, Powerpuff Girls, Samurai Jack, all of those types of shows. And after that, I did my usual morning routine, eating cereal, eating all that other cool stuff. And then after that, I would just hop on my PC and play games with my friends from the school the whole day. We would go on like long gaming sessions from like Counter-Strike, Gary's Mod, Call of Duty, just any type of game that we could find that we could sit down and hang out and play, we do it. Or if there was times where if someone was free, we'd all head over to that friend's house and watch YouTube videos, movies, and just have a pretty good old time, pretty much.
That's awesome. I feel like I'm dating myself because I didn't have the option with friends to watch YouTube when I was growing up, but
Yeah, no, for sure. It's so weird thinking about it now, where we would just go into my friend's basement because he had like an actual like kind of man cave kind of deal, and with a big, I don't know, like a 45-inch screen TV, and we would just go on YouTube and watch random videos, whether it be like, I don't know, the latest PewDiePie video or latest Jacksepticeye video or some random video documentary on, I don't know, why did toasters get invented. We would look like seriously, that's what we would watch, but we would try to find fun within what we had. So it was really a great time to be there, honestly.
would you so going now into to the manga side of it?
Okay, all
As a
right.
huge fan of manga, you have such a deep knowledge in the industry. Would you mind sharing what got your start in the industry?
Yeah,
And what kind of first sparked your interest in manga? Can you walk us part of that journey?
yeah, for sure. So funny enough, I was actually on the part of the side or the community in which I thought manga and anime was dumb. I'm not afraid to admit that. Like I was on that crew where I'm like, "Ah, man, it's okay, but it wasn't for me. I thought it was kind of dumb, was kind of stupid. There's no way you could tell a story through these mediums. Like, come on, really? And looking back now, that was pretty ignorant of my younger self, which I'm willing to admit, but it's true. That's where I came from. And then it really wasn't until my friend of mine kind of eased me into it. I think the first show that we watched was Ad Astra in Space. And the way she got me into it was, hey, you know the game Among Us, right? And I'm like, yeah. Well, imagine that, but in an anime form. I'm like, okay, all right, that kind of seems interesting to me. So went ahead, we watched it. It was actually pretty solid up until the end, but it made me go, okay, all right, I actually got engaged with this story. What else is out there? So then I watched Attack on Titan next, and man, that was like the big old like, man, a lot of people say don't use Attack on Titan as your first anime because that's just going to ruin everything else for you. But I have to admit, Attack on Titan is one of those shows where, at first glance, it's pretty deep. There's like lots of layers to it, especially if you binge watch it from season one all the way to now. But the more you keep watching it, you're gonna find more things you didn't watch, or excuse me, didn't see the first time around. And it makes me go, wow, this is so deep and so complex. I didn't know you could do this. And then that kind of transitioned into, okay, well, because I think at the time, season four, part one was out, but not part two or whatever. So I'm like, okay, I want to continue. How do I continue? Then that's where I got turned on to my manga apps. So I did
Mm.
what is it? I think I mostly read Kindle, but then I found out, oh, there's other manga apps too. So there was the Viz app, the Shonen Jump app at the time, and I just was scrolling through the different titles to see what was interested in me and what really caught my eye. And I think we're gonna go into it a little bit later on to the interview, but Chainsaw Man was actually my very first manga that I read, and that one really like redefined. Hey, even though like you may have thought like anime and manga couldn't tell these deep and complex stories, these ones did. And that really changed my whole perception of what you could tell through animation and through a graphic novel. So with that, I kind of found like a few different people with that similar interest with as me, created a Discord group, and we were all kind of just having fun, hanging out, that usual stuff. And then one day, um out of the blue, one of my friends said, hey, we should maybe start an account very similar to there's this like video game account that follows deals and everything called Wario 64. And we found out like there was not really an account at the time that did that same thing, but for manga. So
Hmm.
originally the plan was all of us to get onto that account and kind of run it. But then out of the blue, they just kind of left and didn't really say anything. So I'm like, I mean, we have the idea here, so I might as well just go on and try it out. So I started doing it. I kind of been doing it like on my way to work because I would have like a good 45-minute um commute time there. So I was looking for time to kill. So I would always go onto like Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Books a Million, and see if there's any deals on there. And then I would just tweet them out, hey, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Then what really kicked off my stuff was there was a thread I remember talking about, hey, what's a manga that you've always been wanting to find, but you couldn't? And I challenged myself to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go into that thread and see if I can help every single person out. And for the most part, I did. And when I got people's message saying, oh my gosh, thank you so much for helping me out. I didn't realize this came back in stock, or oh, I didn't know there was a deal on this. It made me go, well, wait a minute. There's a need for this sort of stuff. And
Hmm.
if I'm able to have been doing it at that point, why not just keep going for it? So then for a little bit, I kind of just been slowly but surely trying to build up these templates, slowly like trying to cement myself with, okay, how do I tell people about a deal? How do I tell people like, how do I showcase that deal? How do I get people to where they need to be? What's sort of like the thing? Because I'm someone that really likes to like know what I'm doing before I get started into it. So I really did a lot of my research on pages like Wario 64 and some of the other like deal accounts on Twitter to see what they're doing. So I could kind of like take little bits and pieces from what they're doing and incorporate my little style to it to where we're at now. And then after a little bit, I kind of added a little bit more. So instead of just focusing on manga deals, I remember a comment telling me, hey, I think it's really cool you're doing manga deals, but I would like to see light novels. And I'm like, you know what? I mean, it doesn't hurt. Try it, why not? So I started covering light novels. And then later down the road, another person said, hey, I really like your light novel and manga coverage. Why not do anime figures and anime Blu-rays? And I said, you know what? That's a good point. Let's go ahead and do that. And so over time, I kind of like gained this idea of, okay, well, let's not just stick to just one idea. Let's try to do everything. I mean, if I can do it, why not? Right. And then what really got in, again, we're going to go into it a little bit more, but then over time, I'm like, hey, um, there's a lot of news and it's great and all, but there really isn't anything covering North American news. I mean, sure, yeah, there's accounts that focus on stuff that's happening in Japan and all the other stuff, which is great, but nothing really focused here in the US or more specifically the North America. So I'm like, you know what? Why don't I go ahead and try it? Sure, I had a little bit of like some issues trying to figure out how to properly source and everything, but once I got it down, I found it pretty fun to report on North American stuff. And over time, again, like the stuff before, the more I kept doing it, the better I got at it. And honestly, looking back now, it's insane to me that I first came into this thinking, wow, anime and manga is dumb. Now here I am covering anime and manga news. So,
Well, that takes a lot of humility to be able to say, like, oh, maybe there's something more to this. I
yeah,
love you sharing your story of just like, hey, someone brought this up and I decided to, check my biases, my notions, and be like, oh, maybe there is something to it.
yeah.
And another, I just got to hands down what I love about I didn't know about your story, but I love about you through just the manga alerts is your generosity. You're even sharing now. I mean, I didn't coach you to say this, but you took the words out of my mouth when you ended up talking about, I was looking to help other people. It wasn't about me. And I think that's so powerful is that you're sharing is that, hey, I want to see how I could genuinely add value and a lot of time people are like, well, how do I make it? I know we're going to discuss this more. How do I make it in something like this? I think it really goes back to how can you add value to someone else? And people can see right away if you're in it for the community or if you're really in it for yourself. And
No, 100%.
I love what you're sharing is hey, I just wanted to be a tool, a resource to help people. And it's neat to see where it's grown from that. So segueing from that, these are the good things, but I'm sure there sometimes there's these ups and downs where people just say, "Oh, look at this road. He did this little thing, and now it's exploded this wonderful thing it is today." What have been some of the challenges you've seen just running a successful account, especially focused on the Twitter and the podcast?
So definitely 100% consistency. Because let's be honest, right? When it comes to content creation at all, consistency is your number one key thing. If you're not consistent with it, then I mean, good luck. But here's the thing though. Consistency doesn't mean, oh, I have to do weekly uploads, I have to make it something every single day. No. Consistency means you have a schedule and you're sticking by it. By being able to do that, you're separating yourself from other people who just do it on a whim or who just only do it for, I don't know, the clout or whatever. But by having that strong consistency and a strong schedule, that shows other people outside, oh, this guy's actually doing something. This person's actually taking the time out of their day to create something in on a consistent basis. Sure, it could be like once a month or bi-weekly or whatever, but they're still on it. I should keep out for this guy. And kind of going back to what we're talking about generosity too, is honesty. I think the big thing and the big core of all content creation, period, is honesty. If you aren't honest with yourself, it's going to show with the content that you create. Because believe it or not, a lot of people can tell whether or not you put your heart, your passion, and everything into it, into something, whether it's like a video, a post, or something, versus just taking the shortcut and just doing it for clout or doing like an outrage video or doing something else. I mean, sure, yeah, there's an audience for that, but for the most people nowadays, right, everything is trying to like grab our attention. If you're gonna like take someone's attention, you got to give them value because otherwise they're gonna walk out of that content like, wow, I just wasted however much time I spent on this piece of content, you know? So having those two things really was what um pushed us for not only the Behind the Manga podcast, but also my personal page as well too, to kind of, you know, be the guiding pillars for whatever decisions that we do. Because again, we're all manga fans at the end of the day, and we're all, people at the end of the day too. There's some people that, don't want to be honest and want to take the easy route, and that's fine, that's okay. But for me, that's not the route I want to take. I want to be consistent. I want to be honest with the stuff that I do. And I want to put my best foot forward with everything that I'm involved in. And I feel like that right there is what separates not only myself and my page from other podcasts, but also the Behind the Manga podcast too. Because on there, for those of you who don't know, it's hosted by me, but then we also have two co-hosts by the names of Winter Venom and Vampy. Both of them do really good stuff on Twitter as well too. But we're all again have that same sort of alignment on the mindset of being honest and being like transparent and being, wanting to add value to the content that we create. And it shows. So many people like it. We've been getting so many interviews on there too. And again, that's really been our core pillar that's been guiding us to where we're at right now.
Hmm. Uh, going a little deeper, because these aren't values that necessarily some just naturally have.
Yeah,
Who taught you, or how did you gain these core principles that you hold true to yourself?
definitely my mom. She's probably gonna be like, "Yeah, see, I told you. Like all those times I yelled at you, that was it." But it's true. Like having, um, my mom had to be both a mom and a dad because my dad would oftentimes be deployed because he's in the military, he's in the Coast Guard, and so she kind of had to play that sort of like dual role of being both a mother figure but a father figure as well too. And really seeing like how hard she tried and how hard she worked to be able to do that, right? Really made me go, huh, okay. I should probably like, step up and really like, do my best because if she's trying her hardest, it's only fair if I do too. And then kind of over time as well, when I did because again, like I said before, I'm someone who does research before I do anything. When I was looking into creating that social media account, I'm not gonna lie, I was 100% against it because I didn't want to create that sort of like parasocial relationship because oftentimes those parasocial relationships can just not be healthy for the content creator or for the audience. And I didn't want to do something like that. But then over time, I'm like, the only reason why it gets like that is because there's a hint of, I guess, malice or sort of like, I don't know what's the right word for it, but pretty much there's a hidden intent behind that. You're trying to gain something out of it for your own benefit. In my case, sure, I guess you could call my page another like parasocial relationship, but at the same time, though, I'm at least doing my best to give back. Like you mentioned before about generosity, like every week I do a giveaway on manga because, for those of you who don't know, sure, well, here in North America, we generally get manga pretty easily for pretty reasonable prices. In other countries, they don't have that same luxury. They really don't. And it stinks because there's all these like wonderful and amazing stories out there that should be enjoyed by everyone, no matter what, you know, age, sex, religion, gender identity, whatever. But they can't because either their currency is just that way undervalued or because of the way like their country works and functions, it's just, it sucks. So being able to lift that burden off of people really like humbled me to go, you know what? I understand that I'm in a privileged position with, the affiliate links, being in, having a well-paying job and everything. I feel like it's only fair for me to give back to the community. Because again, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now if it wasn't for the community. I would not
Hmm.
be, I think, like what, past 30K followers right now. I know Twitter's been kind of acting weird with my follower count recently, but I'm serious. Like, I would not be in the position where I'm at, and I wouldn't be, sitting here talking with you right now if it wasn't for the community. So
Hmm.
it's sort of like a positive feedback loop where by me being generous and me being like giving back, I'm able to take that and, branch out to do more opportunities like this.
That's so beautiful. And I mean, behind the scenes, what people don't know is when we did our first giveaway, you you offered to cover it, which I was shocked, even though it was
Yeah.
a giveaway promoting my channel. And
Yeah. No.
I covered it, but that was so kind of you even to offer. And I was just because
Yeah.
I felt like you're being generous by allowing me to share your platform, to give manga to people who don't have any. And I think you and I were both touched by those stories of, we had two of the winners were in countries that this was their first manga they've ever had. And to
Yeah.
be able to do that for someone just felt so meaningful to me,
Hmm.
is, to see how much manga we have, and yet this person has never had one before. And now we get to give them the opportunity that they can have something physically for themselves.
Right. Absolutely. 100%.
Hmm. Uh, would you mind sharing? So when it comes to deals,
right?
do you, especially, I mean, holiday season right now, for
Yep.
most people, do you think it's is it becoming easier to get deals, or have you seen it wane? And then would it be better to, if you see something you want, just go grab it, even if it's an okay sale? Or just from your experience, is it better to wait because eventually, most likely it'll still be there and there will be a good sale?
That's a great question. So my first answer to that, it's a multi-thing answer, but my first thing is definitely your budget. What does your budget look like? If you feel like your budget is definitely like, okay, I can only afford such and such volumes per month or whatever, definitely I would recommend waiting for a sale. Especially nowadays, there's a lot more like opportunities to get a discount on manga nowadays than there was back then. Definitely try your best to stick to deals. Now I get it. There's some times where it's like, oh man, you know what? I'm at the store. I see it right there. Sure, it's at MSRP, but I just kind of want to buy it. And that's okay too. It's really all about what you personally feel like is value to you. If that's paying MSRP for every book, sure, go ahead. Why not? If you're someone that, you know, feels like, oh, well, I kind of want to wait and kind of want to save on some stuff, then again, what's really beautiful about the manga community is that you can do what you want. You don't have to see what other people are doing to define what you want to buy. I know we get a little bit caught up with like, oh, look at these manga hauls, like what is it? Oh, look at this like super cool whatever I got, or I paid X amount of money for all this manga. And that's cool and all, but you shouldn't let that decide what you want to buy. You really shouldn't. I know it's tough because that's what you see on your screen, but you shouldn't. If you want to wait, wait. Like for my case, when it comes to my buying habits, I don't buy every single release as it comes out. I actually will wait like either 3 or 6 months, or even a year until I'm like, you know what? I see a deal on it. I'm gonna go ahead and pick it up. Now, if it's a series that I'm definitely like up to date or I'm like super into it, then yeah, I'll go ahead and see if Amazon usually discounts it because usually Amazon likes to discount their manga for some reason at like really weird intervals. I don't know why, but they do. There's like one time where I think they discounted, what was it? I think it was like Peter Grill Volume 5 for like $4 when its MSRP is like 13. Now I didn't buy it, but I shared it and people bought it. So, but yeah, no, I definitely would say nowadays it's a lot easier to find a deal than it was back then. But again, when it comes down to, oh, well, should I buy it now? Should I wait? It really depends up to you and how your budget looks. If you want to go for it, go ahead. If not, then that's okay.
I appreciate that. I'm probably, it bothers me, and maybe I shouldn't say that. People who do say, "Hey, this is how much I spent." Like I will intentionally on all my hauls will not put, "This is how much I spent on it." Um,
Yeah.
I don't want that to be the deciding factor. Or be like, "Oh, look at me. This is how much money it's not the reason for this. Hey, this is for you guys. I buy a new series so I can read to tell you what I think about it."
Yeah. Yeah.
I appreciate what you're sharing. You know what I is sound like a lot of, you know, what's your purpose and intent behind it? You know, why do you want this? And to be able to, and for yourself to be able to answer that question.
Hmm. Yeah.
What do you wish people did know when it comes to running a Twitter account, like the MangaAlerts or a podcast? What is someone who wanted to look into this, or I know you already shared you do a ton of research already. Some of the challenges. Is there anything else you wish people knew that might not be aware?
Um, Definitely again, do your research. Like I know I kind of covered it a little bit earlier, but that's like the big thing. Do your research because trust me, you will find a lot of the answers that you might not even like be looking for right there by doing your research. Definitely taking a look at what other people in the same space are doing and kind of like taking note of like, oh, how do they approach this situation? Oh, how do they approach this situation? What are some of the tools that they use to create the content that I could maybe use to um learn and kind of do my own thing? Now, definitely don't 100% like one for one copy, because at that point you're just copying. You're not creating, you're just copying. But definitely doing your research will help you find the answer that you're looking for. And what that will also do is help you find out whether or not you're actually mentally prepared for this sort of stuff. Because that's another thing that lots of people don't talk about. Because sure, yeah, posting deals on Twitter or doing interviews, that's fine, whatever. But there's a whole sort of mental aspect behind it that a lot of people don't talk about. Like, what are you going to do when you post something that you worked really, really hard on, but then you have that one negative comment that says, that sucks. I
Hmm.
don't like that. Are you able to handle that? Are you able to handle that? There are like, even though like we've been talking about, oh yeah, we're super humble, we're super, true to earth, like all this other stuff. There's other people who legitimately don't care and will more than likely get the attention like away from you. You're going to grow at a slower pace than those other guys. Are you going to be mentally okay with that? Are you?
So
So it's
let
like, yeah,
so let
go
me
go
let me
ahead.
stop you there,
Yeah.
because that this is just so powerful. I completely agree. I could get 20 good comments, but I could have one comment take the sale away. Or like you're saying, you do your research, you put your heart and soul in something, and it doesn't do quite as well. And then you see someone that you can see slapped it together and it blew up. Um,
Yep.
how do you what would you tell that person to help encourage them to not beat themselves up? How do you handle it, and what would you tell someone else who might be struggling with that?
Sure. Good question. So in my case, I'll be honest with you, I changed my mindset, because definitely the mindset is where your root of your problem is. If you are there trying to clout chase and you are there trying to like go for those numbers, then that already tells you that you are not being honest with the content you're creating. And because of that, you're trying to look at shortcuts like those other people are doing already to see what they're doing to copy that. And like I said before, if you're just copying somebody else, are you really creating content? No, you're not. You're just copying. So instead of having that mindset of, oh, okay, how do I make those numbers? How do I make those like dollar bills? What you should be asking is, how can I represent myself in the best way possible? How can I share what I love in a easy, accessible format that everyone could relate to? How can I put my honest self out there? By having that sort of like change in mindset, you're able to, again, like I said, you're probably not going to grow as fast as those other guys, but that's okay, because the audience that you're going to build by doing that is going to be more, is going to show up for you more compared to those other guys. Let's be honest. Like for me, I often do Twitter spaces so often, and sure, yeah, I'll have like 17 people, but that's 17 people that went out of the way to show up. That's something that's profound. And especially for someone like you, who does all these interviews and who leaves comments. One thing is to like watch your video, leave a like, and like leave. But for someone to watch the whole video and leave a comment for you to read, because I'm pretty sure, I think if I remember correctly, you read all your comments, right?
I actually respond to every single one,
Yeah,
because like
exactly.
you're saying, if one, I mean, to me, my mind says if I can make an impact on one person,
Yeah,
it's worth it.
yeah. It's 100% worth it. So by being able to have that sort of mindset, that's what's again going to separate you from the basically people who just take shortcuts to get the views. So definitely, if you catch yourself doing that, it's tough. Like let's not kid ourselves here. It's tough not to see those stuff, right? It's tough to um not ignore people taking shortcuts to get those high follower counts. But it's all about being honest with yourself, man. And if you can be honest with yourself and honest with the content that you create, it's gonna push you even farther than what that other guy's doing. So,
I,
and the
I mean,
audience is gonna know that.
one thing I'm thinking about as you say that is, what you attract people with is what you keep them.
Yeah,
And if you're not being honest with yourself, I think you're going to be slowly dying inside.
yeah,
When I see people who attract people through creating an enemy, which is an easy way to get a following, is start attacking
Yep.
a company or publisher. But then you have all you have is a following of angry people.
Yep.
And eventually what happens is those same people turn on that creator that was attacking that company. You might
Yeah.
gain a lot of people in the short term, but those angry people eventually will turn to something else. And if you don't have something to rally them upon, eventually it's going to come back at you.
Yeah. Another thing too is pigeonholing yourself as well too, because if you stick yourself to like just one type of content, right, you're only going to gain an audience for that one specific type of content. And what's going to happen, and I've seen this happen all the time, where that person is sick and tired of creating that one specific type of content. They want to move on to something else. But guess what? Your whole audience, I would say like 90% of your audience follows you for that specific piece of content that you create. So what are you going to do? Do you say, oh, well, I want to do something else now and potentially burn 90% of your stuff, of your audience that you built up? Or are you going to make that shift? You know? So definitely early on, make sure you put your best foot forward, because otherwise you're going to be, like I said before, you're going to catch yourself in some of these moments where you're really going to ask yourself, am I really mentally ready for this stuff?
So, Rafael, would you mind sharing, for let's say those I don't have that mindset yet, or I haven't been grown up in an environment that I
Yeah.
could handle that. Um, and
Yeah.
I'm sure there even sometimes with that mindset, you might have something that still, every 20 good comments, one bad could kind of take you down. Um, how do you handle dealing with critics?
Yeah. It's so the first thing I definitely would say is you're not alone. Everyone processes criticism the same way. Believe it or not, no matter like how many people like you've come across in your life, no matter how many people like you've seen, and some people you might think, oh, that guy, he can take criticism. Well, no, at the base level, everyone takes criticism the same way. And that's okay. It really is. Now, what you do with that, that's definitely up to you. For me, I'm someone who, again, if there's smoke, there's fire. Let's see where this guy's coming from. But there's other people who take it and it just absolutely destroys them and it stinks. Because again, it's a whole mental thing for yourself where you're like, oh, I don't know if I can really do it. I don't know if I can do it or whatever. And if you do catch yourself in that, definitely at that point in time, definitely just take a step away and just take your mind off of it. Because, and take that like 10, 20, 30 minutes, or hell, even like take a whole day, whatever like reset you need to do. Because when you get down into that rabbit hole, it's really hard to get out of. Let's be honest, it really is. And the only way you're going to get out of that is by taking, like, stepping away from it. Believe it or not, finding somewhere place else to do, finding your something else to like take attention to. Allow yourself to emotionally come back to that stable ground. So then you can come back to that criticism if you can, or to, really think about, okay, where is this person coming from? Where is this person? Like, what's this person's intent leaving this comment? Was it to troll? Was it because there's a valid criticism there? Like, what was the like behind the scenes of that? And I feel like being able to do that and having that approach will definitely help um you kind of build some thick skin, but really kind of like break down those sort of like mean comments or whatever. So that's what I would definitely would say.
I think it's good. I always try to like things take a step back is good. Take a break, go, read manga, watch anime, or just on walk. I
Yeah.
always try to ask, is there a grain of truth to this? Sometimes I'll even ask
Yeah.
back, and you discover it is a troll. You're like, well, what would you like to see me improve? I remember one person saying it's your face. I'm like, well, nothing I can do.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're
Dude,
right. There's nothing you
I'm
can do
I'm
about that.
sorry. I'm
Yeah.
sorry that my video is terrible. And then when I try to seek what you'd like to see better, you'd like me to change my face. So I'm there, is there a grain of truth? There's nothing I can do with that. It's time to move on.
Right.
I,
And you're always going to have that sort of like thing where there's going to be times where honestly, there's probably going to be a group of people that's always going to hate you no matter what you do. And like I said before, are you mentally okay? Are you going to mentally be okay with the fact there's always going to be like a group of people, whether you know them or not, that's going to hate every single little thing you do? Can you handle that? And to me, and in my case, I know 100% there's probably a group of people that I either know or don't know that don't like me, but that's okay. I'm just going to keep going, doing my own thing, and they can keep on hating. If they want to hate, sure, let them do their own thing. Me, I'm not going to let them affect me because I'm just going to excuse me, I'm trying to, what was it? By me acknowledging their hatred, it's just going to fuel their hatred even more and give them validation like, oh, yep, by being able to do this, I got this guy to say something. So let's keep doing it. Let's see how much for how what is it? How further we can push the envelope with this guy versus just, you know, it's okay to hate me and I acknowledge 100% there's a group of people that don't like me and that's okay. I'm just going to keep doing my own thing.
Yeah, and I believe if you're trying to make everybody like you, you're probably not doing your job well as a
Yeah.
content creator if you're trying to please everybody.
Yeah.
Uh, let's go more happier topics.
Yeah.
Um,
No, for sure. For sure.
no,
Yeah.
but I think this is so good to cover because I think it's so often people can struggle these days to put themselves out there, and then when they do, it's hearing, well, how do I get there? I think a lot of people see what a creator is doing, or some of the things you're doing, and they're like, I could do that on this on this medium. It's something I've always interested in trying out. So I appreciate you just sharing a little bit of your vulnerability behind the scenes of
Yeah.
it's not always easy, and there's times that are great and things are going well, and there's other times that you're having to take a step back. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
100%.
let's talk about what are some your most exciting developments you're seeing in the manga world right now? What are you looking forward to as we're about to go into 2024?
Definitely accessibility. 100%. Manga is now being way more accessible than it was way back when. Because for those of you who don't know, well, specifically North America, back then manga was only like to like a specific section of like a bookstore or a comic book store, and nobody took it seriously. And if you really wanted to find something that you liked, well, good luck because you had to jump through many hoops and hurdles to get what you wanted. But now, if you want something, you can easily access it through the internet. Or if you have a bookstore near you, or have like a Target near you, or Walmart, it's right there. So being able to see the accessibility of manga like explode and slowly but surely get to the mainstream, that's something really exciting, and that's something that should be celebrated 100%.
That's awesome. Anything else that you see in 2024 that you're excited about? Maybe some new releases.
I definitely am very excited to see um where that's tough, dude. There's a lot of stuff I kind of want. I'm always super excited for like any of the new publisher like license announcements because it's always interesting to see what each of those publishers come up with. And definitely nowadays, they're a bit more open to see suggestions. That's something that a lot of people don't like really think about is a lot of these publishers are listening to what you guys want. So who knows? Maybe, for the longest time I thought Initial D would never get reprinted. But guess what? It got an omnibus and now it's coming out now. So if that's there, then what else could come back from the grave to get a new format? So definitely, you know, it's very exciting to see what could potentially get a new release or a new like re-release for another audience.
I love that, especially very impressed with Kodansha doing that. I love Blue Lock. I heard at a con the whole crowd just started shouting Blue Lock, Blue Lock. And that
Oh,
made them
really?
decide you're like, well, you know what? Maybe we should take this out of digital jail. And they started releasing it physically. And it was neat to hear that, like Initial D, I'm wondering what are some of these other series that they're holding on to. Yeah, that's it's amazing, like you're saying, that more publishers are listening to feedback. And I think it's something especially for our audience to know is, let your voice be heard. Let them know that, tell Yen Press you want to see, Yu and Meko when they cry. If they're going to give us Higurashi, let them know you want that printed. Let them know these other
And believe it or
series.
yeah.
that are
And
out
believe it
there.
or not, what is it? When I spoke to some of these publishers at these cons recently, they actually will look like if you go and tag them, they will look at your comment. And a lot of them also have contact us forums or emails or whatever. Send them that way too. I know the big one is Seven Seas with their license suggestion survey. That's a really good start. And some of the smaller publishers have also picked up on that too. But for other publishers like Dark Horse or Viz Media or Yen Press, just tagging them and letting them know what you want to see, that's that's all you really need to do to let these publishers know. Now, definitely, I can't really comment on if they can commit to it or not, but at least it's something than nothing.
Right. Uh, one thing I want to go into is discuss is you've been kind of known in the community as a bit of a manga journalist.
Okay.
Uh, would you mind sharing what is that? What was that like? Breaking a news story, sharing some details. I know you've done this with a couple big things. One was with some of the changes with CR and RSA. You've it's been neat where things are blowing up and you've kind of been able to get a bit of that inside scoop. Would you mind sharing just your experience with that for the first time?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So I would say the first really big story that I broke was with the summertime rendering hardcovers. So, pretty brief story for those that don't know. There was a period of time in which we were supposed to get the summertime rendering hardcovers by a specific date. That date came and went, and there was no nothing, no communication, nothing. Then I think it was Anime Expo, if I remember correctly, and they was asked at the Udon panel, hey, what happened to these hard summertime rendering hardcovers? And again, they said, oh yeah, well we had some issues and some problems, but we're gonna get it out by such and such date. That date came by and went, still nothing. So there was another thing that came out at the same time. I think there was like some argument that was happening on their subreddit that Winter, because Winter and I were kind of both teaming up to look into this, and we looked into it, and we found out that they had a Discord server. So we went and joined that Discord server, and lo and behold, right time, right place, we found Eric from Udon in that Discord server talking about it. I'm like, oh, okay. And he was laying out the detail and everything. So I went and I asked him my questions. So did Winter. And I asked him, hey, is it okay if I could break the story? And he said, oh, yeah, sure. Here's all the details that you need. I'm like, okay, great. So I had to go, and this was before like Elon took over. So I had to do like all these tweets in like, what was it, like a 300 or like 280 character limit. So it really challenged me to go, okay, how can I break this whole like in depth, like what happened into those little tweets, like into like bite sized chunks? And I was able to do it. And sure, it kind of blew up a little bit after I posted. I think it got like 182 likes, but a lot of people were waiting for those summertime running hardcovers, and no one ever like took the liberty to go out of their way and find out what happened to it. And so when I saw the feedback, like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for doing that, I was like, huh, this could be something I we could do and something that I could, maybe build upon. So since you brought up the CR RSA thing, let's go ahead and get into that too. Because for those of you who don't know, I think I was the first one to actually break that story, period. Like everywhere. I think, to my knowledge. To
You're
my
the first.
knowledge.
I mean, you're the first place that I saw it. And yeah, you can keep going,
Yeah.
but yeah.
No. So what ended up happening was, for those that don't know, uh, again, this happened like a little bit ago, but CR acquired RSA for whatever amount of money. And at the time, originally they said, oh, well, the CR store and the RSA store, they're going to coexist like peanut butter and chocolate. Nothing's going to happen, right? And then, well, look at it now. It's all merged into one. But again, it's funny looking at it in hindsight, but at the time, nobody knew what was going on. I remember the account, I think they're called WTK. They're the ones who first found out, hey, wait a minute, RCA, or excuse me, RSA stopped allowing for new Got Anime members to sign up for subscriptions. and everyone's thinking, oh, maybe it could be like a new subscription price or subscription increase or something. So I went around, and one of my publisher contacts went and actually shared me a screenshot of the email that he sent. He said, hey, I think this would be interesting. What do you think? And I go, oh crap. And that was the actual email that broke the whole story of, hey, guess what? It's going to be merging in 2 weeks. Now, here's my thing. I saw that and I'm like, wait, if this is happening 2 weeks out from that email date, why hasn't there been anything said? That's a pretty short turnaround time. And for those of you who don't know, RSA isn't just some like little website or whatever. No, RSA has been a long-standing company that's been around for almost 35 plus years. And they're well known for their world-class shipping and their packaging. So many people from all ages. Hell, you could probably even find some manga tubers right now still having those RSA affiliate links because it was that impactful and it was that, so much stuff came from RSA. So to see that happen in like the span of 2 weeks and no one said anything, I knew, okay, this is something that needs to be like broken 100%. So again, I went through, I tried my best to condense everything down, make it into like a bite-sized, easy to manage information, posted it, bam, it blew up. Everyone was talking about it. I remember this too. Because of me, I made Crunchyroll trend on Twitter for I think it was like 3 or 4 days. And I was like, that's insane to me. And then throughout the day, I'll be honest, on that day, I did not leave my computer. I was there like refreshing, seeing like asking my publisher contact if there was any like new information. I actually did get someone from CR to tell me, hey, so you know that post that you posted about us? Yeah, that's not cool. And I'm like,
Mm.
oh, okay, all right. But I asked some of my journalist friends because I did get added by a few journalists to like make sure like, hey, did I do anything wrong? Like, is this something that, I couldn't have done? And the answer I got was, well, technically in that email, right, there was no NDA or no like embargo or anything. So
Mhm.
technically it's fair game. And I'm like, oh, okay, all right, cool. So with that said, I've been keeping up to date with it, trying to see if there's any new information. And I remember when the first announcement of it came out, everyone was disappointed because the business and partner emails said a lot more information than the public information stuff. And I was like, there is no way they really just did this. There's no way. And then I remember it was like they were trying to like cobble together something because there were some bits and pieces missing in one part. There was bits and pieces missing in another part. They threw it together in FAQ, but the FAQ didn't really answer any questions. So I, took the time to read everything and try to get everybody answered. And it was really funny too. There was a point where I was answering more questions about the CR store than the CR store themselves. And I have actually a DM message from the CR store team that says, hey, I'm seeing a lot of people go to your page. Could you maybe post about some of the stuff that we're doing in which they were talking about keeping the same pricing and keeping the same packaging, which that was like those were the big questions people had, but for some reason they didn't put it in their initial post. So I think it's pretty funny to see how they use me, someone who broke the story on their whole operation or whatever, to, what is it? Give more news. So I thought that was pretty cool to be able to be part of that and to, at least at the end of the day, no matter what enemies I made during that whole shebang, right? I felt like I did something, like I did a service to the community because thinking back at it now, they had a 2 week turnaround time. And even now, people are still having issues with that store. What would have happened if I didn't break that story? What would have happened if no one knew about it? Like, would have they just pushed it under the rug and not said anything? Would
I
they have just,
yeah.
yeah,
I think somebody would have broke it. I mean, it's seeing that they sent that out to all those people. Um, I know some other people in the space that got it as well. I think
Yeah,
it was bound to happen. And
yeah, yeah,
I think
100%.
the biggest thing what I appreciate you did was, and I think what threw at least me off was not having the transparency of what's going on. And I just want to know what's going on. Um, give a heads up. So I think it was a learning moment for CR as well on,
Oh,
hey, we should
100%
have
it
all of our
was.
ducks in a row
Oh, 100%.
for because especially if you're sent to your publishers and you're creating confusion for them when I always think when you're confused you lose, and if you're
Yep.
confusing them it's only going to bring up more confusion to the public if you don't have your ducks in a row ahead of time.
Oh,
And
100%.
even if they
Yep.
said, hey, just let you know, we're going to announce within a couple hours to people, until then if you don't mind keeping this to yourself, that would have been a little different. uh, but that's really exciting, and I like, it sounds like even CR came back and even asked like, hey, can you help us with this?
Oh, 100%. It's really funny too, because I was 100% expecting them to not work with me after breaking something that wasn't probably supposed to be public. But hey, I'll give them props for saying, hey, you know what? This happened. I'm going to go ahead and it'd be a better thing for us to just work with the person where people are looking at. So there you go.
We're about wrapping up our time. I'd love to ask, is there anything else you'd like our listeners to know before we wrap up?
Um, Again, I'm someone who's very humble and remembers where I came from. So I really do appreciate every single one of you for coming out to this video, watching the whole thing, leaving a like, leaving a comment, following me, following Scott from Geeks That Parent, everything. Because it's the little stuff that matters to us, and it really pushes us to go, okay, we got some meaning now. We definitely know there's someone out there watching, and we want to make sure that we put our best foot forward. And I really do appreciate the support you guys have given me up to this point. I would have never gotten the opportunities I would have gotten if it wasn't for you guys. I wouldn't be able to give away like whole series sets. I wouldn't be able to go partner with you, Scott, on that one giveaway we did earlier. I wouldn't be able to, do all these like cool things within the space if it wasn't for this good community backing me up for it. So I really do appreciate everything that you guys have done. I really do appreciate the friends I've made. I really, again, shout out to everyone from Manga Mavericks. Those guys are really cool. Shout out to Winter and Vampy from Behind the Manga. Those guys are really cool too. And especially thank you, Scott, for giving me the platform to be able to talk to you about this stuff too. Because again, not every day do you have someone coming into your DM and saying, "Hey, can I interview you about all this stuff?" And at that point in time, I'm like, you know what? I think it's time to try it and see what happens. So seriously, I thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be here.
Well, I'm so grateful for you giving us the opportunity and just sharing a little bit of your story. My last question, if for those who are interested in following you these days, what's the best way for people to find you?
Honestly, I got a whole list, but generally you can find me primarily on Twitter or X or whatever it's called on at MangaAlerts. And then if you're looking for a really good podcast to listen to, definitely give Behind the Manga a listen. We got plenty of interviews from different people inside the industry and some publishers. We go over different anime and manga news. So if you want to go ahead and do that, we're on all platforms, I think like Spotify, SoundCloud, all that good stuff.
Well, awesome. And I'll go ahead and I'll leave links in the description for anyone who, to make it a little easier for everyone to find.
For sure.
Awesome. Well, Rafael, thank you so much for giving us your time and just sharing your story. It was one of the most incredible and insightful interviews I've had in a while. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and hey, like the invitation is open. If you want to interview me again, by all means, I'm always down to sit down for a little bit and chat with you about whatever you want, honestly. So thank you again for having me.